1-kilometre Wannaroo Park circuit. There is the grid as it formed up yesterday. 3 of them under last year's best qualifying time set by Peter Brock, and 6 of them under Alan Moffat's lap record set last year. That's the last 5 of the top 10 on the grid. Jim Richards perhaps the most disappointing time further back in the field. Alan Moffat a quite electric time at a 61.76. Fury only 600ths of a second faster than Brock, as they now well and truly in the starter's hands. 10 seconds only remain, and Johnson only a 100th of a second faster than Peter McLeod, who was 5th. They're underway, and it's a good start from Moffat, but can the V8s blast through? And they get away badly. Johnson badly is 6th. Brock is 3rd, though. Fury and Moffat argue at the front. Moffat wins the fight. Brock wants a way through on Fury, can't find it. We've got Cullen 4th, McLeod 5th, Johnson 6th, Harris 7th, Richards 8th, Keogh 9th, Lusty 10th, with this man leading. 4th only in the championship from a 3rd at Sandown with a car that was spilling oil and a non-finish, a non-start in fact, in Tasmania. The cold loop at the back, the top of the circuit. Now, over that crest and the longest straight on the circuit. Moffat leads by 0.8 of a second over Fury.
And here comes Johnson down the straight, trying to make up ground from the back of the field.
And it's a big break by the leading 3 too.
Johnson up in a 5th position. Peter McLeod right behind him.
Well, Cullen, Johnson and McLeod in 4th, 5th and 6th are falling away from the leading trio, and they indeed are pulling away a touch from 7th place Andrew Harris, who heads Jim Richards. And this man's making a jolly good break at the early stages. Larry Perkins, the Marlborough Holden dealer team manager, said Peter Brock will run the first couple of laps in 62s, the next 10 in 63s, and from then we'll stretch out to 64s.
Moffat back to Brock, 2.2 seconds.
And to Fury, 1.2. So Brock a further second behind Fury. McLeod through on Johnson. Can he hold him? And he does. Johnson, you'll see him in the distance, has fallen to 6th. Peter McLeod in the yellow Slick 50 Mazda has come up to 5th. So Johnson's car not really running very well, nor I suspect is this one running as well as he'd like. On the other hand, Howard Marsden, the Nissan team manager, said that he thought Fury's car was the only car around this track that could possibly stay with Alan Moffat. He didn't think the V8s could do it. Fury only a second in arrears to Moffat now.
And Moffat's pit crew holds out a sign to him that says pump, P-U-M-P. Now what in goodness name it means, I'm blown if I know, except perhaps that he should be turning on an auxiliary oil pump inside the motor car.
The blanket over the first 3 is 1.8 seconds. There's 4th, 5th and 6th place Johnson. 7th place was Andrew Harris. Brock stalking Fury fairly effectively. Fury just falling a touch from Moffat. Bluebird that replaced an engine after the first practice session yesterday and a turbo after the second session when he won himself second grid position, but the very next lap cost Fury a turbocharger. Alan Moffat doing about a 1.2.6.
And
averaging 138 kilometres an hour.
He's now 2.8 seconds ahead of Peter Brock in third place.
And really flying. Peter Brock's closer to Fury. Fury's further back from Moffat. Only about half a second from this man forward to second placed Fury. Look at the gap building up by Moffat as he puts in some real flying laps. And a big gap from this trio back to fourth. Over the top of the hill that brings him now on this run down to a stop corner, Alan Moffat. Kodak corner it is. It leads them round into pit straight. A tight one with a reverse camber right to the outside there. Moffat falls out to about a 1:3.5. So slackens from a very hard pace in the opening laps.
Cullen comes under threat from Peter McLeod, with Dick Johnson again ranging up behind. The lighter and more nimble Mazda RX-7 capable of outbraking Cullen's Holden Commodore at the end of the straight. Of this downhill straight.
To stay in front.
Warren Cullen currently lying third in the Australian Touring Car title on 26 points, having taken sixth place at Sandown and a fifth at Symmons Plains. And there's Alan Moffat. Lap 6.
Moffat leads Fury by 2.4 very nearly, and Fury leads Brock by nearly a second. So a tantalising gap from the leader back to third place Brock, a gap that Brock would not like to watch, remembering he's had two easy wins in the first two rounds at Sandown and at Symmons Plains. So leads the championship on 50 points from Johnson, with two second places at those rounds on 46. Cullen third. Fourth place, Grice and Moffat equal. Grice not starting here today on 20 points. As we come back to the race leader, Moffat. The seventh time round onto the straight.
And now 4.4 seconds back to Peter Brock.
And here you see the dice. For fourth place as Cullen covers from Peter McLeod, who goes to the outside. His only chance there is to get a good line through the corner and a duck back and try and come out tighter and out accelerate him. Dick Johnson, sixth, will not be happy. The Chikelli-esses. This Peter McLeod's best effort so far. He's qualified ninth in both the previous rounds. Didn't finish at Sandown, got hit in the Andrew Harris accident and then up the tail and then into the fence on the first corner on the first lap. Finished fourth at Symmons. Today he qualified very well in fifth place.
Here he comes, challenging the Holden up the hill.
And on the wrong side, though, for the run into Kodak corner. No,
it'll
right
be a braking duel.
Got him.
And Peter McLeod takes over from Warren Cullen, but only just. And the grunt of the big V8 Holden Commodore shows out again as they come down to Castrol Loop, and he covers his corner well. Advantage of this duel to close the gap on Peter McLeod, but not having a good time through the S's. Johnson's problem is his tyres. He's on the last set of 19-inch Dunlop slicks available in Australia. He has to get more built for him in Japan before the next round of the Australian Touring Car Championship in Surfers Paradise. This circuit is notoriously hard on tyres, and especially on a big car like Johnson's. Perhaps he's hanging back at the moment to give himself some tyre condition for the last few laps. The leaders now. Alan Moffat already through. There goes George Fury, followed by Peter Brock. 4th, 5th and 6th we see now coming up the main straight. McLeod looking for a way through. Won't do it there on the outside. And he's desperate to get through because Cullen is really blocking him.
Well, each using the particular strengths of their cars there very well. Cullen able, with the squirt down the straight, able to head McLeod into the corner. McLeod having to sacrifice the entry to the corner to try and clamber underneath him either in the corner or on the way out, but doesn't have the grunt to get out fast enough to do so. A good battle, this one. Two very disparate motor cars, and interestingly, Dick Johnson, the champion from the previous year, just can't do anything about it. He can't even get into the squabble.
George Fury is 3.3 seconds behind the Alan Moffat, Peter Stuyvesant Mazda. Peter Brock certainly is not content to be where he is, but seems not to be able to do anything about it. Back to the dice for 4th.
I think in terms of Brock, perhaps on this circuit, he wants to conserve his tyres, if anything, for a crack later in the day. McLeod on the inside. Not game to risk a panel-bending argument, or is he?
Yes, he is. No, he's not. There goes McLeod, but drops back behind as we watch Alan Moffat onto the straight.
Quarter race distance, and that's the situation, and you can see the leaders there. The gap not very big, although Alan Moffat's using it well, but will be into traffic now and taking the field through with him. His lead about 2.66 seconds on Fury. Fury pulling out just in the last lap or so, 1.56 on Brock. As we look at this dice, again, 4th, 5th and 6th place. Cullen still 4th though.
A lot of marbles on the outside there. Not a good place for Peter McLeod to be. And Cullen's gone. Had to happen. And as he got there into the grass accelerated him into the fence. And the car he's trying to start it, and flames are firing from it. He's got it going. Here we go again. Let's see what happened. McLeod really tried to claim the corner, got forced off, but then he hooked the rear of Cullen's car. Cullen was all unsettled and had no option but to go. But watch him when he hits the grass. He accelerates into the fence. The John Lusty car, an ex-Peter Brock Holden Dealer Team 05 car, running back in the field.
And George Fury has pulled out at the end of the straight, so Alan Moffat now, the 2nd place behind him is Peter Brock.
There's Fury at Castrol Loop at the end of the pit straight.
All come to a finish for the Nissan Bluebird Turbo that last year here took 2nd place to Alan Moffat, and he finished only 3.4 seconds behind him. But it's all over for George Fury and the Nissan team in a weekend that really has been a very sad one for them. So the situation changing now brings McLeod to 3rd and Johnson to 4th. He's jumped 2 places just by dint of staying out of trouble in the last couple of laps. The race leader and the man out of it.
Lap 12 of the event, George Fury. Perhaps another turbocharger failure. The leader, Alan Moffat. Round Castrol Loop. Up to the corner they call Nameless, and at the moment Alan Moffat is certainly sitting in the box seat, but there is a long way to go, and tyre condition is crucial in this event. Moffat, one of many drivers who've chosen this meeting to use the new Avon racing tyres introduced into Australia for only this Australian Touring Car Championship. The tyre giving good wear properties apparently, although it won't be tested thoroughly until lap 40 today. Warren Cullen into the pits, and that's the damage you can see to the front of it, and what a disappointment for Warren Cullen, because in the first 2 rounds of the Australian Touring Car Championship he's been going so well, so steadily, and gaining a lot of good form. Alan Moffat on pit straight once again.
Moffat's lead over Brock now in second place is 4.68 seconds. And from Brock in second to Johnson third. Sorry, to McLeod third. Johnson is interestingly catching McLeod a long way back. Haven't got a time on that one, but Johnson to McLeod only 1.76. Fourth place Johnson, 5th place Andrew Harris. Oh, that's Warren Cullen. We've been arguing over 4th. Check in the pits, back out.
Up to the corner called Nameless comes Alan Moffat on lap 15, coming up to his 16th lap of the circuit. Remember, 1 lap after this last year, Alan Moffat made his lightning pit stop to take on fuel and then go on to win the event. He claims he won't be doing it this time, but who's to say with Alan George Moffat? And he completes lap 16, and after 15 laps, that's the results. Alan Moffat followed by Peter Brock, with Peter McLeod a fair way back in 3rd position under challenge from Dick Johnson.
Not much Brock can do about it on a circuit that he says is extremely tyre sensitive. He said you could drive around here and a new set of tyres is worth 2 seconds and good for only a few laps before you fall back off your time again.
Brock doing a 65.2 and has settled down into the groove at about 65s.
Outside then what they were predicting for him. And the South Australian car.
That's Bernie Stack.
Car that Larry Perkins has been giving Stack some advice with. But being run on a fairly low budget.
So much so that he had to hitch a ride over here from South Australia with the Lusty team.
Brock 5 seconds in arrears to Moffat after 16 laps. McLeod 19 and a quarter seconds behind Brock, but not very far in front of Johnson. In fact, about 2 seconds. But a nice bit of driving by Alan Moffat early in the race. Put in some real screamer laps to demoralise the opposition. Really to break clear so as he could pick his lines and do things just as he wanted to do them. admittedly on a circuit that suits the car. He's been able to go to these Avons, which are a fairly soft compound. And still circulating in 64s. Brock doing a good job, though. You can see him looming into the distance. And really trying to run to a plan which is quite critical for the big car on this track, but now 5 1/4 seconds behind Moffat. Then third placed, McLeod. So it's Mazda Commodore, Mazda Falcon.
Johnson only 1.6 seconds behind Peter McLeod. Threading his way through traffic rather well, coming up to lap Brian Bolwell in the Escort.
Jim Richards, incidentally, went out apparently on lap 4. We haven't seen him for a long while. And oh, well, he's out on the circuit. He fell out of his major placing on lap 4, let's put it that way.
Bernie Stack gets out of the way judiciously for the flying slingshot Mazda. Moffat, of course, once compared his Mazda to Peter Brock's Commodore by comparing it as a slingshot to a moon rocket. Well, the little slingshot's not doing too badly today, as you can see, leading Brock by more than 5 seconds.
Let me get this right. I've been very wrong on the JPS BMW. He's in 5th place. He's been working his way forward, not backwards. So Jim Richards in 5th place at this stage.
It's amazing how a black car can disguise itself out there, Will.
It's more the lap chart that's hard to read. Brock 5.4 behind. Broken up temporarily by Bernie Stack, who's been lapped. So perhaps another way of looking at it is Stuyvesant first, Marlborough second, and JPS 5th. And there's the BMW, which I have so wrong. He got away, and in the opening laps was in 8th place and is now up into 5th behind Johnson. The BMW mechanics say the car doesn't really seem to suit right-hand or clockwise circuits. It is, of course, a left-hand drive car, so the driver has some advantage in being on the inside, but also it helps the balance of the car. And look how hard Richards is working at the helm there.
Richards is 12.9 seconds behind Dick Johnson in 5th position.
And Andrew Harris pressing him hard.
Peter McLeod had been making some furious signals to his pit. It's now stopped and he's still going quite well, so we assume whatever problem he had has now been overcome.
Alan Moffat slotted the Mazda onto pole position at Simmons, started from 3rd at Sandown, where finally he also finished 3rd. Simmons, of course, didn't leave the start line. Well, he did. He got to the first corner.
.2 seconds the gap from Peter Brock up to Alan Moffat. So Brock not able to keep in contact with the flying Mazda of Moffat.
Moffat with 20 points, looking at 25 at the moment, would give him 45. Peter Brock already has 50 and is looking in second place at 23, would take him out to 73. So still a handy lead, particularly considering that he must drop 2 rounds, will miss 2 rounds because of his absence preparing for and running in the Le Mans 24-hour race in a Porsche 956. Peter Brock, the man who's leading the point score at this stage, from 2 wins at the previous 2 rounds, Sandown and Symonds Plains.
Peter McLeod, incidentally, is 21 seconds behind Brock in 3rd position. And he is only 2.1 seconds in front of Dick Johnson, who is 12 seconds again in front of Jim Richards in the BMW. In 5th and 6th position, these 2 people, Jim Richards in the black BMW, and behind him, the rookie of the year, Andrew Harris, in the ex-Peter Brock Holden dealer team, Commodore, now sponsored by Kmart. And Harris doing an excellent job to hold down 6th position in such illustrious company.
Seconds from second place Brock to third place McLeod, a couple of seconds further back to Johnson, and then a big gap back to Richards in 5th. Andrew Harris stalking him in 6th.
And Richards really flinging the BMW about. The car still is not handling as well as the JPS team would like it to.
You have to say that when a man of the very modest car racing experience of Andrew Harris is giving a stir to one of the acknowledged best drivers in the country, and in fact reining him in. Richards working so hard to stay there, the second of the Kmart team cars getting into a good argument.
Alan Moffat through Castrol Loop, and there are the results at lap 25 with 15 remaining. Peter Brock in 2nd position, some 6 seconds behind, and then a gap of 20 seconds back to Peter McLeod, who in turn is 2.8 seconds in front of Dick Johnson. Alan Moffat is well past the time at which he would have called in for fuel had he been going to half distance. So we must assume he's going to do the full thing. The dice for 5th position down the main straight. Harris looking for a way through. Richards can't get it there. Murray Carter, you can see in the Mazda RX-7, looming behind them again. This circuit a very difficult one, especially for a newcomer like Harris, because it's so critical that you ease your power on with a big V8, or you can find yourself pointing backwards very quickly.
2 entirely different motor cars, both front engine rear wheel drive, but the 6-cylinder fuel injected engine in the BMW sitting out a long way forward of the axle. The axle line's at about cylinder number 5, independent rear suspension, 3.5 litres, revving very hard, and not a great deal of torque. By comparison, the big V8, piles of grunt at low revs. A very front-heavy car too, although the engine's set further back. Live rear axle, in other words, a banjo-type non-independent rear. But a pretty effective motor car. Not a great deal of refinement, but all the power and torque that you want pretty well, although a little bit less tyre wear would be a good thing. But Harris, look at him, going well through the Chikeli S's. And by contrast, a little Mazda that a lot of people see as being a sports car, certainly very low and light by comparison with the Commodore in front. Interesting at the weigh-in yesterday, where drivers had all sorts of different amounts of fuel on board, but the Richards BMW weighed in quite light at 1,204 kilos. By comparison, for instance, with Andrew Harris's car at 1,268. Murray Carter's RX-7 came in at 975.
The race for first place, Peter Brock has dropped 10 seconds now behind Alan Moffat. Meantime, Dick Johnson has closed to within 1.3 seconds of Peter McLeod.
That's the dice for 5th, 6th and 7th. This is the dice. Peter McLeod holding 3rd, Johnson 4th. Johnson, of course, lying 2nd in the championship on 46 points. Peter McLeod, who's getting close, to whom he is getting close, catching, is well down in the championship. Equal 8th with Jim Richards on 17 points. Not far in front of George Fury, who'll earn none at this round. Equal 10th with Steve Harrington on 15. So McLeod, Johnson catching. 1.2 seconds.
And Harris is through Richards, under brakes, coming down into Kodak corner. He's done it, and Richards has now got to look for a way through. But a brave passing manoeuvre by Andrew Harris. He waited quite a few laps and summed up the risk that he would be taking to take a late braking manoeuvre on Jim Richards and pulled it off. And now let's see if he can sprint away from the BMW.
They're having little trouble in doing so, seemingly. Although a blanket of only a bit more of a second covers the 3, as Murray Carter now wants the BMW.
And he's done it. So Jim Richards has obviously got a problem. Oversteering there, you can see very early into the corner.
Remember that the big BMW, when it gets revving, is as fast as almost any car, and look at it, spurt past the Mazda. Conrod Strait at Bathurst, it was as fast as the big V8s. And it showed its top end speed there. Once the motor gets revving, will rev out to over 8,000.
Only one thing for it, his tyres have gone off. You saw how slowly he had to take Kodak corner. And Murray Carter just closed right up on him again. So Jim's only answer now is to be able to hang back and hope that the tyres recover some performance. And he just is in no position to be able to fight with Murray Carter. Although he's making the BMW terribly wide through the S's.
Richards going again for the big sprint over the hill and down the straight, and doesn't it go? And then indeed has trouble in the corners with tyres that are just skating.
Murray Carter, the veteran, well into his 50s, is enjoying the scrap no end. That's what he goes motor racing for.
Carter now 5th.
Goes terribly wide. And And the dice for third position now between Peter McLeod and the Slick 50 Mazda and Dick Johnson right behind him. That's Bernie Stack in front. The two cars behind are the ones. And Johnson now has closed up that 1 second gap, and he's after third position. He's done 31 laps. There are 9 remaining. If he's conserved his tyres, now is the time to try for it. Bit of a touch there by the looks of it. They were just on our camera cut, looking a little bit crossed up as they came through the S's. Johnson now trying it under brakes.
And you
watch out of the corner. Johnson slides. And McLeod should be faster. He should be able to go deeper under brakes into Castrol Loop.
Dick Johnson planning this quite well. The car obviously not as competitive as he would have liked, but has been looking after the tyres. Now in a bit of a position with only about 7 laps remaining to try and grab third.
Point is though, Will, that he can't afford too much of this swinging around or his tyres will go off. He's got to get in front of McLeod soon or he'll lose tyre conditions. This time McLeod's got the gap he needs, but he's got Bernie Stack right in front of him, and that'll slow him up somewhat in the corner and give Dick Johnson the chance to close, which he does.
That's the situation after 34 laps, and Alan Moffat's lead is now 14.4 seconds over Brock, and this argument for third place, Johnson's still fourth, but plenty left in that scrap, and Bernie Stack mucking it up somewhat. Johnson's about to be a bit forceful with him, I think. Stack gets out of the way.
0.9 of a second now between them. And it's opened up just even a little bit more there. Alan Moffat has now lapped Murray Carter. And Jim Richards, who's now fallen back from Carter.
Which means Moffat's lapped all but 4 in the race. Here he is on his winning way. Most untypically for Alan Moffat and the Peter Stuyvesant team, had trouble in both the previous rounds. Sandown, an oil film across the rear of the car. Oil was swinging around in the cabin, coming out of a breather, and Alan Moffat slowed, but finished third. Then Simmons went to the start line boiling, didn't get past the first corner, although he qualified fastest, as he did here yesterday. Just going around in a 66 that particular lap as he completes 35, goes out on his 36th.
Brock is 15 seconds behind Alan Moffat, and he is 17 seconds in front of Peter McLeod. And this has been a copybook race from Alan Moffat. He blasted away from the pole position, which he so richly deserved from yesterday's practice, and has never been headed in the whole race, which is exactly what he needed to be able to conserve the condition of the car properly. Here's the dice for third position between Peter McLeod and Dick Johnson. 4 laps remaining. if Johnson's going to make a move, he's going to have to do it very quickly now. Frankly, it's probably reasonable to assume that he's tried and failed. Jim Richards now. Now in 7th position, behind Murray Carter, behind Andrew Harris, who's now in 5th place. There's the leader, Alan Moffat. Lapping Andrew Harris. Or is it Warren? Yeah, that's Andrew Harris.
Well, Alan Moffat is not going to move further forward in the championship at this stage than 3rd place, the way things lie at the moment. Peter Brock would go on to 73, still leading the series from Johnson on 63 if he doesn't improve on his 4th place. Moffat would go to 45, 37 you'd have McLeod, 30 Jim Richards, and 26 Warren Cullen.
Brock 16 seconds behind Moffat now. He's losing a second a lap to Alan Moffat. And Johnson has gone ahead of Peter McLeod. It's happened. Dick Johnson has picked him up around the back of the circuit. He's made his demon run, and Johnson's up into 3rd position. McLeod is challenging. 3 laps remaining. Laps to go. Alan Moffat has completed 38. And Dick Johnson opens just a bit of a security gap on Peter McLeod as they come up to the crest of the rise and dive down into the braking area. Alan Moffat is up to Nameless Corner. The circuit is 2.4 kilometres around. Alan Moffat now has 1 lap to go. And as Moffat heads up the back of the circuit, Peter Brock only now comes onto the main straight. Moffat last year won his 4th Australian Touring Car Championship. He took 4 out of 8 victories, took pole position 3 times, and held 5 lap records around Australia. This year his run's been left a little late into the 3rd round, but do not ever underestimate Alan Moffat's ability to be able to pull back from positions of adversity.
And remember that the reason that Alan Moffat isn't going to the Le Mans 24-hour race is that Peter Stuyvesant want him again to win the Australian Touring Car Championship. And he's got the car, the team, and the ability to do so as he comes to victory for the first time this year in the 3rd round at Wannaroo Park, Western Australia, at the Australian Touring Car Championship. A great win to Alan Moffat, a quite dominant one in car number 43, the Mazda RX-7 with the 2.6 litre swept volume, twin-chamber Wankel engine with fuel injection. Peter Brock then takes 2nd, more than 15 seconds in arrears.
In fact, 19 seconds in arrears. Dick Johnson now swings onto the straight to take 3rd position. And behind him, vanquished, 4.9 seconds behind, is Peter McLeod in 4th position. But a great race from Peter McLeod. And he pulls to the infield, which is where he's supposed to go. That's okay.
Which takes Moffat, as we mentioned earlier.
No, it's not all right. Peter McLeod's got a problem. He has pulled off the track.
45 points in the series from the leader in the series still, Peter Brock. From 2 first places and 1 second. From Dick Johnson, 2 second places and a third on 66 points. To Moffat, a third, a non-finish and a victory on 45 points. 4th in the series, Peter McLeod, from a non-finish, a 4th and a 4th, 34 points. And from Jim Richards, a 4th, a non-finish and a 7th place, 30 points. As now the mechanics swarm over the car, check tyre and perhaps even brake temperatures. I think mainly tyre at this stage. And it will be, without any doubt, a very tired Alan Moffat that gets out of the car. Puts in an enormous amount of effort. Delighted as ever, talking to his team manager, Alan Horsley, former manager and race secretary at Oran Park. 43 years old, Alan Moffat. 4 times Australian Touring Car Champion. 4 times winner of the James Hardie 1000 and the shorter race at Bathurst, the 500. And 3 times winner of the Castrol 400 at Sandown. Touring car specialist extraordinary by comparison with Peter Brock, who's won the Repco trial, who's driven in rallycross, and who even has fiddled with single-seater race cars. And Dick Johnson too, a touring car specialist and a much loved one among the Ford fans.